There's a Franklin Street in Ogdensburg. There's a Franklin Street in New York City. There's one in Boston, Philadelphia, and dozens of towns you've probably never heard of. And here's the thing most people miss. Franklin Street was almost never about honoring a man. It was about selling an idea. Today, we're standing on Franklin Street in Ogdensburg, New York. And once you understand why it was named, you'll never look at this street again, maybe even the town, the same way. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Street Sign Storytime, where we drive around this beautiful country of ours, mostly for me in the area that I live. And as I drive by street names and I see street signs, I say, you know what? I wonder what is going on with it. How did it get that name? It's something that's always intrigued me. Yeah, because I grew up in an era where we didn't have smart devices on our road trips, so we used our imagination. And I spent a lot of time on this street. This street is near and dear to me, and it's been brought up a lot because a good buddy of mine lives on this street, and it's brought me a lot of memories back to hanging out at my grandma's house on Franklin Street. So I was like, you know what? This just feels right. We did Ford Street last week in Ogdensburg. We're sticking right in the burg. We're going to do Franklin Street. So here are some stories and some things that I found in pretty cool Franklin Street. There's a lot more history than people think. There's even an old place that was on Ghost Hunt or Super Haunted. If you stayed there, would you stay there? Let us know. But either way, without further ado, let's jump in to the Street Sign Storytime of Franklin Street, Ogdensburg, New York. Because when Ogdensburg began developing in the, earnest in the early 1800s, the town wasn't just growing, it was introducing itself. This was a border town, a river town, a trade town. And in that era, towns didn't name streets randomly. Street names, they were signals. Franklin Street almost certainly refers to Benjamin Franklin, one of the most recognizable figures in American, especially early American identity, right? I mean, who hasn't heard of Ben Franklin? I mean, it's all about the Benjamins. Anyways. Not for the reasons that you'd expect, though, why he is one of the ones that is recognizable so early on, because Franklin wasn't chosen because he fought battles. He obviously wasn't a king. He wasn't even a president. He was something far more useful, because Benjamin Franklin, he symbolized. And you know what he symbolized? Commerce, communication, practical intelligence, self-made success, American independence without aristocracy. He was a printer. He was a postmaster. He was a businessman, a negotiator, and a connector of people. For a town like Ogdensburg, positioned on the beautiful St. Lawrence River, trading goods, ideas, and influence, Franklin wasn't just a hero. Franklin was a brand. Naming a street Franklin told the world, we are modern, we are American, we are open for business. This is the part that most people don't realize. In the 18th and 19th centuries, towns used street names kind of the same way companies use logos today. You'll see the name and, this pattern, the same pattern, almost everywhere. Main Street, ever heard of one? Commerce, daily life. Water Street, trade and transportation. State Street, authority and government. Washington Street, leadership and nationhood. Franklin Street, industry, intellect, progress. Franklin Street wasn't named because Franklin had, been there. I mean, we're not out here saying Benjamin Franklin actually visited Ogdensburg, New York. It was 18 whatever, and he was on here. No. He had never been there that we have been able to find records of. It was named because the idea of Franklin was already everywhere. I mean, Ogdensburg's developmental accelerated pretty rapidly after the American Revolution and the War of 1812, during a period when the United States was kind of still defining itself. And this is a moment when towns wanted to be seen as loyal to the new republic, but they also wanted to kind of show everybody that they were independent from the British influence. They were forward-thinking. They were economically viable. Franklin, famously, was the American who negotiated with foreign powers. He helped legitimize the young nation. He proved Americans could compete intellectually with Europe. Damn right. Putting his name on a street wasn't about history. You know what it was about? Confidence. Another key detail that often surprises people that in many towns, streets were named before they were fully built. Yeah, Franklin Street wasn't necessarily named for what existed there at the time. It was named for what the town hoped would eventually exist there. And, the name, it's aspirational. It said, this is where progress belongs. Now, here's where things get a little interesting, because when you drive down Franklin Street today, you're not just moving through space. You're moving through a decision made over 200 years ago. Someone sat down. Someone chose a name. Someone decided what values this town would project. And that choice, well, it's stuck today. I mean, Franklin Street has quietly outlived businesses, buildings, political movements, entire generations. Because let's be honest, ideas last much longer than people. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Towns, they weren't accidental. They were designed. They were labeled. They were packaged. Franklin Street proves that Ogdensburg didn't just grow. It introduced itself to the future. And that future, let's be honest, it's us. So the next time you see the Franklin Street sign, remember, it wasn't named to honor the past. It was named to shape the future of Ogdensburg. And, well, that future that Ogdensburg truly did believe that they were building. Whether that future arrived exactly as planned, and let's be honest, there's a lot of arguing on Facebook about said future in Ogdensburg. But one thing's for certain, the name, it never stopped trying. This is Street Sign Storytime, where the road signs tell the truth, whether we're paying attention or not. Can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your busy day. If you happen to travel down Franklin Street, send us a picture. We'll put it on the socials, and hopefully you enjoyed it. And as always, if you have a street name recommendation, let us know. Love to do it. And again, we have switched gears. We're doing real facts, real history, stuff that we're able to find about these street names and not the fictional ones. They're fun. I really do love those, but they were a little confusing. And a good buddy of mine said, hey, why don't we find some real stuff? So here we are. We're finding some real stuff, and I'm enjoying it as well. And hopefully you are. And if you do, well, we'll be back next week. And hopefully 2026 is off to a great start. That's all we got. Take care, everybody.